Welcome to the Pure Prison Podcast, a Society First production. My name is Shai Hillman. Before we begin, we want to give an introduction of our goals, and that is to provide a platform that identifies both the problem and the solutions to the criminal justice system. The purpose behind Pure Prison Podcast is to give a voice not only to those who have been impacted by the system, but also to those who are positively impacting the system. Society First wants to ensure that all guests feel free to express their thoughts and beliefs. With that being said, not all views and beliefs of those interviewed are necessarily the views of Society First. With that, we hope that we will inspire you to get involved, for it's only together that we will make a difference. Welcome back to Pure Person, everybody. Tonight, I'm bringing her in because this is something that she deals with a lot, and we're going to be talking specifically about a friend of hers. So let me go ahead and bring her in. Hi, how are you tonight, Melissa?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm blessed. How are you?
Fantastic. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then go ahead and lead us right into Jamie's story.
Sure. So about me, I've always been a human rights advocate. You name it, cancer care, memory illness, mental health, and most recently, over the last couple of years, inmate rights. And that's right where it leads me to Jamie. I met Jamie in 2019. He was released from Florida DOC. He spent 17 to 27. And it was based on a double jeopardy charge and all. It goes deep, but 17 to 27 in Florida DOC, enduring some vile, heinous, cruel, and unusual punishment, things that no child or adult should ever have to endure. He was released from prison and wanted to start his own ministry, Jay's Second Chance, which is now Prayer Call from inside the DOC. He's doing that currently to reach inmates on the inside, because what we need to do until all this red tape is clear, these policies are updated and true reform happens, we need to empower our men on the outside being released. And we also need to work on empowering them on the inside. That's where a Warrior Within project comes in. We also do, a lot of our inmates can relate on narcissistic versus empath type stuff. And we also both work with people in relationships post-release, trying to just get it right, because they're tired of getting it wrong, and the system's held them back long enough. So Jamie was released in 2019. He had been suicidal at that time, not at that time, but in prison. He then, and actually after that is when he started his ministry work. He helped people get their GED. He did multiple educational programs. Then he got accepted to the faith-based program, and he just soared from there. But when they released him, they had no structure, $50 and a bus ticket home. He chose to go home to mom instead of going to I guess there was a work processing center. I'm not sure about those details, but he went home to mom, and we met almost right away online. And he came up to Virginia, just Northern Virginia anyway, just a few months later. And he was ready we were going to take on the world in different ways with his own ministry and my own work. Well, he was released with 1 month medication. And he wanted to get help. He told me he was asking his mom for help. And I told him, I said, if he doesn't get it by the time he comes up this way, that I'd be happy to help him in that way. Well, we tried when he got up here. He presented to the local community services board of mental health. He presented twice saying he was suicidal and wanted to take his life. He was feeling helpless and hopeless. Told him about his mental past, and they heard him enough to say, here's a number, call, and we'll set up an appointment. And I saw that man just deflate, because it was hard for him to go in there. It's hard to say you won't need help. All of us can identify. And but he was still doing good, still keeping positive. But he had some stuff still going on, and then some other outside life things happening. And he still pushed on.
Right.
He ended up making an attempt at suicide and almost succeeding in August of 2019. And that was really hard. That was really hard because he was rushed into emergency surgery. Fast forward a few more months, he's in with a corporate company. He's on his way to be an assistant manager. Excelled at every training program that he was in. And then he was triggered. We started to see in some different, like, depression was very heavy for him. He did great at work, but he came home and it was heavy. Well, he was triggered earlier this year, and I spent 3.5 weeks trying to get him help. I was trying to save his life. He was as suicidal as I had ever seen him. It was tragic. And I'm speaking for all the loved ones on the outside, for inmates. They put us through it. Their processes, they put us through it. We know the rights that are being violated inside. They do not care. I had 80 officers, and we're just right nation's capital. 80 just outside the nation's capital. 80 officers, 2 sergeants, and 1 lieutenant who told me they weren't issuing an emergency custody order for mental health when he presented 6 days. He presented 6 days in the same clothes. I told him he wasn't eating or drinking and he wanted to kill himself, and he was disassociating. He has a fear of officers, but
so let's go ahead. So he has presented for suicide. He's medicationless. He doesn't have medications at this point. Now, and it's on and off. It's been intermittent, correct? So he has this big trigger at this point. He's rushed into the hospital. Now, what happens next from there to the next incarceration? What happens? What's that pivotal movement?
So the random manic episodes or anger, rage episodes just kept popping up at different triggers. He has a lot of paranoia, thinking people are out to get him, because that's what you learn in there. I'm just getting rolling chills thinking about it because it's tragic. Some of the stories he has, being assaulted by officers and inmates, and he was just a boy when he went in there. From the time he attempted suicide, we kept talking about it. He still wanted to get help, but he's still doing really good at work. Then he started getting afraid of the mental health system because they had already let him down when he came out. Well, we tried one more time after we moved, and that was a different county just down from us. And that county, I was trying to get help for me too, because at this point, just being both of us, not self-loving, not empowered, nothing. We were just going through it.
Right.
And even when I tried, and I was trying to show him how, we could do this for you, here, I'm going to do this for me. But even when I tried, it took me 6 calls and almost a nervous breakdown on the phone with the lady, because they kept telling me I was doing everything right, but call back. So he had one more attempt before his last trigger that led us to the DOC again. And he didn't, they told him to call back again. And, he doesn't even have a regular phone all the time because of the cost. And he's trying to build himself up. Well, then he was triggered. This was about, I guess now 3 months ago. January, I'm sorry, there was one more, horrible incident for him, but he told me at that point, he said, if I need help and it gets too bad, call 911.
Okay.
And so I started when he started showing different delusions and stuff, audio and visual. And I'm very knowledgeable with the DSM-5 because I've studied it all my life, not for a certification, but just to get through my own life situations. Well, he ended up 3.5 weeks. I called our local police station, police station, asking for wellness checks because he was so suicidal. And I was deathly afraid. This was the most he had ever been there. And, his mom is like, please help me save my son. She lives in Florida. So I'm going through it, and I'm literally just praying to God at this point because nobody's listening to me. Officers have shown up. He disassociated enough to say he was okay. I was starting to present a basket case myself because I was begging them to help me save his life, and nobody was listening. Not one officer that showed up after each call knew that there was previous calls. It's all the same county, 2 different substations, but still no connection. They finally came out. It was a just a loud, just to say a loud situation. They came and detained him. They brought him, and I told them, said I was worried he was overdosing, and he's not a drug user. He came out of jail pure and ready for, Jesus. But in his breakdown, he had wandered into the bad part of town and found whatever it was, and I suspected a chemical. And I knew he had somehow inadvertently ingested this, not meaning to. And they said it was Molly. And I was scared for him because his mental health started going worse after that. And he wanted help. I know that. He kept trying to find me and get to me because I'm his only family member up here anyway.
Right.
And so they got him to the hospital, and they did an emergency safety plan. So they handed him a piece of paper saying, okay, we see that you have some issues going on. Here's what you do next. Now you're kind of at the head of the line because I got the ECO. Mm-hmm. The officer confirmed he was slurring on site. They were worried he was overdosing. The community service board that did the eval, they broke the law because they didn't make sure that the hospital detoxed him. He called me 4 hours later slurring. 24 hours after that incident, he was in handcuffs. They released. So basically we had full system fallout.
So what was the reason that they arrested him? I mean, why did he go to jail? If he was having psychosis and
Yes, he was in active psychosis. And
why would he go to jail? I'm not understanding this.
Exactly. And you know what's funny? Let me tell you this, because about the police and how corrupt they are. I don't have a license right now. On one of the calls, they asked me to leave my house, come to his house, because they were talking to him. They responded to my wellness call. He was slurring. They wanted to take him to jail for showing up intoxicated in public, even though I was telling them I'd been trying this for 3.5 weeks now to get him help. They literally told me, looked at my license when I arrived, knew I was not a licensed driver, and told me to drive him home. They would follow me. So it was okay for them to allow me to break the law for them because because it was a difficult situation. His psychosis was getting worse. So he was actually telling the police he wasn't as cooperative as he was before. He's like, why do I have to go home? Stuff like that.
He's in complete psychosis, and that's the breakdown. That's what happens. Okay.
For all of us.
Well, yes. Yeah. And you know what? And I really feel, and I mean, I'm empathetic for what you were talking about, because when you're dealing with someone like that, a loved one, and you're dealing with that kind of a level of a psychosis and mental break, and you're trying to maintain your own life, and you're not taking out for self-time, because that is important, people. And you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, rest is important. You're not drinking water. You have no idea how important that is. You're not doing things like that. Those are the simple, basic things. It becomes oppressive and overwhelming, and you feel like you need that help.
Yes.
So,
yes, you're right.
And kudos for you for realizing at that moment, okay, hey, I'm in a situation now where I need help also, because if I don't help me, I can't help you.
Exactly. And that's a big part of my empowerment piece, because I was trying to help Jamie from an unfilled cup, bone dry cup, and it didn't fruit. Yeah. And when he went into jail, so as far as what took him from release from the hospital still intoxicated to jail 24 hours later, he was trying to find me. I was always kind of his beacon, so to speak.
Right.
Well, he came to the house. He actually used to rent there too. He came to the house that I lived at, and my landlord came outside and started, getting at him. Now, mind you, part of this that triggered him made him super jealous of other men. This was something that we dealt with. I think a lot of, that's common. That's common, especially when we're dealing with. Yes, exactly. So he literally reached into his pocket to pull out his phone to call me. I'm getting a phone call in DC saying Jamie's here with a knife. And I'm like, what? Jamie doesn't even do weapons, first off.
Right.
And anyway, so my landlord lied on the police report and said that he pulled a knife on him, and he didn't. And that day he was arrested, he told me, and we were out looking for him for 24 hours. We had eyes in the sky, dogs, everything. Only only once the lie on the police report was made did it get more attention, but only to bring him to jail.
We know now that he's in a severe psychosis. Now they take him to jail. Let's go to that, because I want to talk about some of the things that did and did not happen to him once he was incarcerated. So let's hit a couple of those very important things. And just so our audience knows, this isn't one or just a few people. This is, unfortunately, more people than you could imagine this happens to.
Nationwide.
So go ahead. Yeah, nationwide for sure. Go ahead.
So just from the start, when I tried reaching them, because so he went in on a Friday. Saturday, I got his free phone call, panicked. Why was he in there? What happened? He doesn't understand. He thought I did it to him. It was so scary. It broke my heart. Well, at that point, I put money on the books. Again, Jamie would reach to me for any help if he was ever scared. Well, I didn't hear from him after those 2 free phone calls. The cell they kept him in has a button, says emergency only. But they were insisting to me, when I was calling and telling them, I spoke with them, I'm talking dozens of times. The medical director, everybody at the front desk, they know me now by face and name. I told them, I said, he has an ADA protected right to manage his own physical and mental health illness within right of the jail, right? Okay. So he has right to ask for a phone call. Because that's his grounding. That's mental health grounding, right? He has right to ask for a phone call, because I could talk to him enough to know if he was disassociating. He didn't know if he was in pain, if that makes sense. Just like he didn't know he could get food and water from his fridge for 2 weeks. But he didn't know he could press the button. That's what it was. He didn't know he could press the button for help. And Easter Sunday was the next day. And praise God. And I tell you, there's some God showing up right after that, just one after the other. But Easter Sunday, he called and he was still distraught. He was on suicide watch, couldn't have a Bible. And I told him, I asked the guards, I told him, I said, you are violating the 8th and 15th Amendment. And his medical care and his hernia could be very volatile to that. It could become an emergency situation for his surgeon on the outside. And I didn't hear from him again until a day after. And that's it was Monday that he went on COVID quarantine from suicide watch. Mandela law is 15 days to torture. COVID quarantine keeps you in 14 days. Okay. He ended up having pain, very immense pain. He was telling me he couldn't use the bathroom, that he was he was distraught, sweating, he said. And he said he called for help. They didn't come. Then they did come the second time, but the nurse checked him out and said, oh, he looks okay. So it just got worse from there. They rushed him out to emergency care finally. His blood pressure was 140 over 104. 48 hours for emergency care. He was left alone crying. So 48 hours for emergency care. Then once he got there, the surgeon told him, the emergency room told him, you should be in surgery within a week. We see what's going on. They did a scan. They gave him some narcotic pain medication or whatever. And the jail was to give him ibuprofen. Yes. And that's fine. He was willing to accept that. Not that it was enough, but it would help and get him by. Well, it took 5 days to get the ibuprofen on board with him. Still at this point, no mental health eval, natural detox. He said other people were getting Gatorade. He wasn't even getting Gatorade. And you could hear it on the phone, his random blips of, like, as he was coming through the psychosis and the detox from that horrible chemical, we don't know what it was. You could hear it. He was coming clearer and trying to remember blips and pieces. But anyway, they strapped his intestines to his body with one of those belts. I think you said you had one of those.
I did.
And they were just...
Mine was just to actually help me. Mine had not distended as far as Jamie's, because this is about the time I got involved when you had called
Right.
me and told me that this was the situation that we were dealing with, because that is life or death. At that point, you can
Yeah.
become septic. Anything can happen if your intestines rip, tear that muscle, anything can happen. And this is about the time that I had gotten involved.
You gave me so much hope. You
Yeah,
did. I appreciated you so much.
no, thank you. Now, all of this is happening. He's got his intestines strapped to him, like one of the belly binders, and they're so uncomfortable. And it's not. What else can happen? What else can possibly happen here?
Oh, it had only just begun.
I mean, it's crazy.
It really is. And that is when you came in, and I tell you, when I heard that you heard my voice, when you jumped on board and you told me about your own hernia experience, um, and then you said that you were going to call, it just, oh, I cried after we got off the phone, and I just knew that at least one more person believed me, and that helped. That helped refresh me because I
Mhm.
had been new to the empowerment piece, but I was working on it every day. But anyway, so what happened then at that point, he had been rushed to the emergency room, remember? Well, that
Mhm.
started another 14-day quarantine. Over the time, he was then denied. So he was found in his cell throwing up profusely. They went to the hospital. I believe either to the hospital. No, they sent him to medical, and they sent him back with a blanket. And so anyway, he ended up the next time after the internal doctor visit gave him a blanket, kept charging his commissary when they told me they wouldn't until he was out, took all his money. He then, oh Lord, then he was begging for medical help on the door, telling him he was in excruciating pain. It had started, his intestines had wrapped around his and like pulled it up. And I don't mean to get too graphic. I apologize,
Mm.
but that's as real as it was. And
Mm.
he said his lower back was hurting. We know by just those symptoms he was in gastrointestinal paralysis at that point, which is a step that usually requires emergency care. Then they rushed him out to the emergency room again. Guess what? Another 14-day quarantine.
Oh my God.
We're past the week the surgeon, they refused to let him see his medical documents. I tried getting the medical documents from the outside surgeon to them. That proved to be a headache he said he never ended up getting until I got it to the lawyer. They tried cutting his visits with the lawyer at this point. He was left in pain. His intestines began filling with, we thought it was blood at the time, but it was actually urine.
Mm.
Um, it was literally just self-empowerment and reverse psychology that got him through the darkness in there, because then now the guy steps forward and says, oh, I did lie on the report. I did
Mm.
only see something shiny. I didn't expect it to turn into all this. The guy actually had only wanted Jamie to get mental health help. He knew Jamie. He knew this wasn't him. He's a family man. I've known these people 30 years. So anyway, he was released on PR bond even after the guy stepped forward. So there's a process for everything, right? Paperwork, everything takes what, dog years, I guess, in there, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
We finally got him out. They gave him 14 days of medications. And
Yeah.
they said, because they finally did get the mental health eval, and there's some details he has about what they knew, and he didn't understand why they didn't do anything if they knew all these things I was saying. So everybody has already stopped and failed to do their job. Mind you, my own civil rights were violated when in this process I did a candlelight vigil for them. They broke the law and my civil right and tried to put me into mental health evaluation. Luckily, the judge saw it was a civil rights matter, as the hospital confirmed, and I was out 4 days later after they tried sedating me.
Hold on.
Anyway.
Well, no. Oh, what? I didn't like that just last little part. I got out 4 days later.
Yeah.
It took you 4 days.
4 days.
You were in somewhere for 4 days. You were in somebody's mental health place.
I was on my way out.
What did they, that was like a Baker Act or something?
Yes, that's what it is here. Yes. I was just thinking, like, how many, if 40% is the reported statistic in the county that detained me, healthy
Right.
as could be, how many happened in that 3 weeks in the same county that didn't get help when I was trying to get Jamie help because I was trying to save his life.
For all those weeks.
And for all those weeks, how many don't get reported, let alone the ones of us not calling 911 because we know it's a bad place in there?
Go on that a little bit more. It would be how many families have called and like you said, it's just been so overly traumatic for their loved one that they cannot mentally think of putting their loved one back into that position again.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because this is what a lot of the mental side of it is. Okay. For instance, right now, I know that they're dealing right now with a lot of the nation. They're closing down mental institutions. What are they choosing to do with these mental patients? Where are they putting them?
Jail.
That's right. Jails and prisons. They don't belong there. They do not belong there.
They never did. It was supposed to be a mental eval probably in childhood. People just need to have their pain heard. That's almost like going on air, for example, which I encourage inmates to step forward, their loved ones to step forward, because it's almost as if when you speak to the masses and your pain is felt by other people, and that's healing, that's global healing, just your one voice, you're that important. It's almost like cognitive behavioral therapy accelerated. And it's so powerful. Say that again.
That's my favorite. That's what changed my whole entire life was cognitive therapy. Yes. Changed my whole world. And once I could change that, my spiritual walk was able to get closer. All that chaos was taken out of the way.
The toxins just gone.
My own mental blocks. The topics that we need to, there's so many people, but right now, the civil violations that are happening upon our loved ones, and granted, and I always say this, not every officer is bad, but
of course not. There's good intention.
Yep. But when it comes to that level, there's only so many people in charge. So many people can only do so much. It's going to take us, society. That's right. Society, the other people, the ripple effect that it has happened. The people who are mentally, they need help, our help, the prisoners who need our help, all those families, all those friends, we need to come together and stand together as one.
That is exactly my goal. What I'd like to do, and just to wrap it up too on my end, my goal is with the Warrior Within Project, I want to help empower the loved ones on the outside, because you're not going to be able to help them until you are filled up and ready to share, and Jamie, by dealing with the loved ones, we get in touch with the inmates on the inside and we give them purpose, because prayer call from inside the DOC, and it doesn't even have to be any specific God, just your God, because he's a relational God. Maybe you just want to get a comment out. It doesn't even have to be a prayer specifically, but you send that to us. We're going to post it. More people are going to read it and say it, manifest it. And then we're going to give those guys, those gentlemen on the inside who have been beat down by society and system and failed mental health everywhere, we're going to get them with purpose and moving at least towards the light, because it's so dark in there. But if they have a reason to wake up, because they need to know, they got to help their brother get off some stuff off their chest. We need to give our men emotions back. We need to get them on the healing road and empowered in there, because till these laws and policies and reform come around, keep fighting for them. But now we got to do the ground level. We need the loved ones on board, standing up. You can make a difference. If you don't know how, let me know and I will help show the way.
Yep, it's boots on the ground time, people. So tell us how we can reach you and through prayer call. How can we do that?
So with Jamie, because the Commonwealth can take his freedom again on the June 10th, even though the charges are supposed to be dropped. But yes, prayer call from the DOC. Prayer call from inside the DOC on Facebook, and then a Warrior Within Project. A Warrior Within Project at gmail.com is how you can communicate with us, and on Messenger through either of those groups also.
All right. It was such a pleasure. I love you to pieces. I
love you too.
A couple times a week. I look forward to having you back on. Everybody, that was Missa. That's what I call her. She has Melissa up there. And she's with a Warrior Within Project inside of Washington, D.C. People, you know what I say? Peace or pain, choose it. It's a good one. If we don't start coming together, people, it's going to be pain, and it's going to be pain for us. It's going to be pain for our families and our loved ones. I don't know what it is. Everybody talks, but nobody wants to do. It's time to do. Love you guys and can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.